What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spark to Fire. Today, I've got my new friend, Jeremy Barnett. He is a three-time founder and the current CEO of RAD AI, formerly RAD Intelligence. And he founded that company back in 2018 with over 15 years of digital media experience. He believes in the power of connecting the science of data to creative decision-making. This belief drives a unique vision shared by his co-founders and this team at RAD AI. And to further kind of realize this vision, the company most recently acquired Atomic Reach, a leading content AI technology company based in Toronto. So I'm super pumped to get into this. Jeremy is a stud with tons of entrepreneurial experience, but also like he is light years ahead of most people when it comes to understanding Web3, understanding the implications of marketing as it relates to Web3. So I'm pumped to get into this. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Landon. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. Like, let's do the origin story of Jeremy. Where did this all begin? When did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I've never held I'm unemployable as a human being, and I didn't go to college. I've never really had a job. I had a 1099 sales job, which I did successfully when I was in my early 20s, which told me I could sell. So I kind of like self-taught myself how to sell. And I realized at a very, very early, was it 28, 29 years old? I'm 47 now. That besides the fact that I'm generally unemployable, that I am highly interested in creating my own opportunities, workflow, and also if I don't do it, then nobody else is going to do it. So I've always kind of had that like urgency of I always kind of feel close to death, if that makes any sense. And I always have had a need to make it happen. And if I don't, then nobody else is going to, which has actually really served me with all three companies that I've had. And I've been fortunate enough to work with some really fantastic people on several ventures. And in 2017, I exited my last company, which was a fashion technology company called Trendy Butler.
Yeah.
It was a good, fun learning experience from everything from managing conflict to managing a complex exit to building a company to $25 million a year in less than 3 years to all of the different things that are associated with something that grows really fast and then the challenges associated with it. We did our own media buying. We were also very early in that business with all things creator media, activating creators to make content across all the different social channels. So RAD was created initially to fix a lot of the problems associated with booking and activating creators and then connecting that content to paid advertising. And we've sort of grown up over the last few years. And in August of 2021, I made the decision to merge with a company called Atomic Reach, which was an acquisition, but is really more of a merger. And we did that because of the differentiation that we were able to deliver into campaigns with respect to the artificial intelligence and the content authenticity. So there's this real intimate connection between authenticity in content and the performance of the media that we've been able to uncork, which seems kind of obvious when you say it, but the artificial intelligence has essentially been designed to create authenticity within the framework of any media that's created. And we found the best people to create that content are creators, not influencers, creators. So it's a different type of human that is truly connected to the brand, creating a whole bunch of content that the AI informs across the entire marketing mix. I'm happy to unpack that a little bit more once we get into it, but essentially we've been doing a new offering since we've merged, which is really leaning into high volumes of authentic content that's created by real people that love your brand, that have a genuine connection to your brand, and then using the artificial intelligence to mandate and where that content gets distributed above and beyond the organic channels. So across the entire marketing mix. So everything from paid advertising to blogs to emails to web pages. And that's really what the AI does, is it helps you understand where you should put the content to realize the best performance and the most value out of the content. And that's what we've been doing, and we've been having quite a bit of success over the last 12 months.
That's awesome. Are you able to talk about who any of your current clients are?
Well, we Condé Nast, Accenture, UBS, Dignity Health, MGM are the ones that I can speak about. We have 3 that we will be leaving our pilots and moving into longer term contracts with, that when that's done, we can do that. Also Splinterlands, which is the leading Web3 play to earn game, is one of our clients. So those are the ones that we can talk about. The verticals that we focus on are healthcare and finance, travel, hospitality, entertainment, and Web3. I put a little asterisk next to Web3 because there's not a lot of content marketing going on in Web3 as a whole right now, given the negative sentiment. It's become a very challenging, complex ecosystem, which is a whole nother conversation. And then we do, National Cinemedia also is another one of our larger enterprise clients. So we like to focus primarily in those verticals. And the idea for our customer profile is it's typically an enterprise brand, market cap at $1 billion plus. They typically have a content marketing team. They're usually spending north of $10 million a year on paid media. They usually have a budget north of $5 million a year that they're using for influencers or creators. And there's a ongoing commitment from the brand to not just create media and create content, but to utilize that content in different parts of their business and be able to understand what the impact of that content is in those different parts of their business.
That's super cool. So I want you to give me an example of, I love if you could just give us an example of how this works. So we can talk about, I'll let you pick the company, and I want you to give us an example of what exactly you guys did and how it was realized for them, and just break this down a little bit more for us, because I feel like most people, when they hear AI, they just kind of they're intrigued, but they also kind of seize up because it means so many different things depending upon what the frame is. So if you could just give us an example of what that looks like for your AI.
Yeah. So part of the problem with adoption when you use AI is it is unfortunately a piece of marketing jargon for a lot of brands that are vendors that don't really have what was really AI. It's more like some interesting data science model with somebody who understands machine learning, helping you make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial intelligence, the way we think about it, is it's not meant to replace anybody as a marketer. So it's meant to more so be an ally to you to help you become better at the thing that you're doing. So that can be looked at in any wide variety of tasks. So if you think about it as a marketer, the things that you do to, or the processes that you consider as a part of your ongoing decisioning for how you buy your media, where you buy your media, what information you look at that guides the decisions on your media buy, what type of information you look at to help you understand what topics you're looking at when you go into a campaign. So there's all these things that you as a marketer do, and you have to think about things also. The word marketing is this big word. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. So you have channels, all these different channels, and then all these different channels are all these different rules that mandate success or lack of success depending on who you are and what your objectives are. So the net effect is just it means a lot of things to a lot of people, and then you mix into that some jargon and some confusing solutions. It just becomes a very, very complicated thing that oftentimes people are just, I hear it and I turn off to it. So that's been a challenge on the adoption side. So the first thing that we like to say is, number one, artificial intelligence that is on the content marketing side exists to make your life better based off of the task that you're trying to accomplish. And depending on what you're trying to do and the solution that you're using, that's all you're doing, is you're basically using something that's going to make your job better, faster, easier, smarter, one of those things, right? So what that means for us is we use artificial intelligence in two different areas. in the structure of a campaign. The first is when we set up a campaign, we'll use our AI EQ to do three different things. Number one is the artificial intelligence will create a AI informed list of creators that we find. These are not creators that you're finding that have different search terms or are going through like some sort of a quote unquote influencer search on like the normal platforms. These are creators that we've identified through several different ways of ingesting data. We have data partnerships with all of the major platforms. So we're able to look at post level data. We're able to look at the creator from more of a view of, is this creator creating authentic content in your industry? And then we're able to drill that down and create a completely different and unique list of creators that's AI informed. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is you will come to us, and most of the time as a brand, you have a creative concept that you want to use. Like, hey, we're going to do this campaign Q4 for men's vitality, for example. And we were going to target 45 to 55-year-olds or something along those lines. And what we do is we do two things. We'll either validate the thinking on your campaign, which means we're validating the audiences, the targeting, the concepts associated with the targeting to attract the customers that you're trying to attract, map to your objective. Or we're going to provide contrarian information that's going to tell you through undeniable data that your thinking on the campaign is potentially needs to be shifted, or it's a little bit contrarian to what should actually happen. And we've seen this happen on the majority of our campaigns where they'll come to us with a specific idea and concept, and then we will run our analysis and we'll prove to them that that is not a bad idea, but this idea is better. So you can either test a new idea or do a new idea, but you're using data to inform the decisions, which essentially is removing the biases. So before we kick off the campaign, there's a level of trust that gets developed between us and our clients, because the information that we are providing back in that initial feedback loop is not information that's disputable. It's factual information using a combination of like we have a partnership with Reddit where we're plugged into their API. So we're looking at 183,000 subreddits that have potential correlation. We're using, depending on the channels that you want to activate on, if it's Instagram or Instagram ads or Facebook ads, or depending on maybe it's TikTok or TikTok ads, depending on the different universe, we are ingesting post-level data in those environments to help further inform the campaign. So there's like, for example, a client will come to us and say, we want to run a TikTok campaign, and we can run analysis and we can say, okay, your customer is not on TikTok to begin with. Your customer is over here. So even if you get really good engagement on a TikTok campaign, it's potentially means nothing because your customer isn't even there. So there's all these really interesting sets of data that we can go into the campaign. So the third part of that leg is providing this feedback loop that we give to the client at the beginning. And what that does is, number one, is it informs what we should do. But number two, more importantly, is it creates this barrier, this level of trust within our teams, right? In other words, they now are thinking about it a little bit differently. Oftentimes we're just validating things, or we're providing contrarian information, but the way we show them the information and deliver those insights is mission critical to the success and trust in the campaign. And once that happens, we've now positioned ourselves to be very, very successful. So that's how we start the campaign. We have a services layer that delivers the actual campaign activation. So that's all of the creator activations. It's the negotiations with the creators and all that type of stuff. So that's a very traditional services part of our business. And then once all the campaign is produced, we have maybe 20, 30, 50, 100 pieces of content that the creators have created. And we've now got these different models based off of the channels that's our technology, right? So we have an AI EQ model for every marketing channel. And so it's up to us to go through that process during the discovery of saying, what is it that we're going to do with the content afterwards? Well, we're going to buy Facebook at media and advertising with it. Okay, we have an AI EQ model for Facebook media, and it ranks the content from 1 to infinity, creates a feedback loop, and you can now use all the content plus any new content created, and based off of your targeting objective and channel that you're on, it ranks that content. So that's AI EQ for paid media, depending on the channel. And we have the same we have a similar structure for all of the other channels. So we can do an AI EQ model for your organic social posting by channel, which informs what content should be, what type of content should be created that performs the best in your organic channel on your organic channels. We can do it for we do it for blogs, we do it for emails, we do it for web pages. So the idea is you have all this beautiful content that's created, it's authentic, made by creators over here, but you typically have this like, okay, we just got all this organic performance, we report back on it, and that's where it typically stops. And what our technology is it's the next thing that you are doing with all that content. And it's the proof and the visualization behind the value of that authentic content compared to your other normative benchmarks and baseline. So a big part of what we do is the activation. And then another big part of what we do is once we've activated and we're distributing this content in different places, is having that feedback loop of visualization to where our client can see the value of the authentic made creator content comparing to the other content that they're distributing on those channels. And they're able to see a very clear distinction and performance variable there.
That's fascinating. So once they get this data posted, you've got all these, activated influencers or creators, as you call them. So you have all these creators that are out there building out content, and as they go create, you're able to real-time analyze the authenticity, the performance, all of that good stuff. And on top of that, like, you basically are feeding that back in to essentially like an algorithm of what they will create based upon, right? So like, hey, this had a ton of lift, this worked out very well. Am I catching the drift? Is that what you guys actually do?
Yeah, you're like, there is yes, you are catching the drift for sure. I would say that the feedback loop is it's a never ending feedback loop, and it's a very deliberate architecture that a enterprise marketing team can lean into depending on the function that is associated with that marketing team, right? So we'll have like, there's a very specific deliberate process for creating blog content, and that's very much for blogs and only blogs. And there's another very deliberate specific process for email sequencing, and that is for emails. And then there's a very deliberate process that's specific for paid advertising. But the idea is the brand, by committing to this architecture of how they're going to take this content and repurpose it, and also committing to authentic content, not influencer made content that they're paying somebody, but finding creators that are genuinely connected to their brand and going that extra level when you're activating the creator to really get them to not just be a part of the brand and who the brand is, but making sure that that is real, authentic. And the way you do that is by, like, if it's an education company, finding educators that are either using the brand or product, or finding educators that should be genuinely using the brand and product. And it just, when you think about it from that perspective, it becomes less about how many followers the influencer has and more about the quality of the content that the creator can make, because the quality of the content that the creator makes is where the value is realized from the brand. But we always say, like, when brands commit to content authenticity, their reward for authenticity in their content is better performing content. And that can mean more leads, that can mean better engagement, that can mean more conversions, that can mean whatever the brand says that thing is that's more valuable to them means. But there's a reward for content authenticity that's really important, and that reward is better performing content.
Man, fascinating stuff. So what did people do before this? Like the dark ages, before before these brands found you? Was this just like all in spreadsheets?
Well, no, I mean, traditional creator campaigns or influencer marketing as an industry sort of had these ebb and flows of different companies that do different things and activate influencers. And there's all sorts of really cool, sexy pitches that are out there around different influencer marketing companies that do all these different wonderful things. And at the end of the day, what they're using is a smart analyst to identify influencers. They give you a list of influencers. Then the brand has a content marketing team that's looking at the influencer list, and they're using biased opinions on whether they should say yes or no to these influencers. And then the person they've engaged with goes out and books them. And there's all sorts of different ways to put color, to put lipstick on the pig, I think, in that context. But if you really break it down to its core, there's a smart group of people that are handling the influencer booking and the outreach, and they're presenting people that sort of make sense based off of these different, we'll call them like social attributes, but it's bias, right? There's biased opinions on why these people are being presented. And then there's biased opinions on the brand side when they're looking at these people, and they're taking their biases and deciding whether this is a person they would want to engage with or not. And then what would happen from there is once the engagement happens, the content is produced, and then you typically get some sort of a report that shows what an awesome job whoever it is that booked your campaign did, right? This is how many impressions we got. This is how much engagement. If it's a smarter vendor, maybe they're using the content in paid advertising, and they're figuring out a clever way to communicate how awesome of a job they did on the paid advertising side. But if you really think about it, what does this all mean to somebody who's not a marketer? Because oftentimes with our clients, we're coming in through either a C-suite, chief digital officer, head of analytics, head of innovation, sometimes a CMO. But what the person that really needs to be impressed with this isn't any of those people. The person who needs to be impressed with this is the COO or the CFO, if they're getting budgets allocated. So there has to be some sort of quantifiable thing that you can latch into that results from the campaign, that the people that are waving the flag at the organization can say, hey, this is how we impacted the brand, and really, really be able to dial that in a way that is understandable and jargon free. So that was always our focus. Like, how do we not sound and smell like everybody else? And then how do we communicate marketing jargon to like a COO or a CFO who doesn't care about how many impressions or how much engagement we got? And that's really where we were able to uncover value that was, well, if there's authenticity in the content and we map it all the way through the end, and then we map the performance of that content that's authentic, that's created, we can show a difference in the performance that is just numbers driven. And the reward for the brand for committing to this authenticity is a better performing set of content mapped to their objective. And then everybody kind of understands what that means from a value perspective. The marketing team understands it from a marketing perspective, and the budget holders that are assigning budget understand it from a value perspective. And that's really important. Both of those have to sync up.
Makes sense. Everybody's got to be aligned, especially when you're talking billion-dollar market caps. You've got several hoops you're going through to even get there in the first place. So
Yeah.
With this, you guys have created an incredible piece of technology. You've got some great clients. I'm curious, like, throughout your growth as the co-founder of Trendy Butler, how much of this was developed out of pure necessity as you were trying to analyze what you were doing with Trendy Butler?
Trendy was just a big, fun learning experience, and also an interesting model because we were very early with several of the things that we were doing. So the benefit of being very early is you oftentimes have skewed numbers that are not necessarily representative of an ongoing scalable marketing infrastructure. For example, when we first started doing influencer marketing at Trendy, we could post on an account and we would just watch sales come in. And it's not like that anymore, right? So that was so that was definitely part of it. And there was processes that were slow with respect to how you book the creators, and there was processes that were inefficient with respect to why we made the decisions we made on the paid media side. But it's the things that I've learned with respect to some of the processes with how you activate a creator. There is a human element to it that is required. So if you're looking for a way to speed up the process of booking a creator, setting the creator brief, putting those things in motion and just speeding through that whole process, then you're going to suffer, then there's going to be some breakdowns in the quality of creator, in the communication of the creative concepts to the creator, and that will then reflect poorly on the content that's created. So there's things that just have to be in place when you're talking about a high quality creator activation, because you're not trying to book the cheapest creator that's going to do the deal based off of the dollar amount you're willing to pay him or her. You're trying to find the best creator that's going to create the best possible content, because we're talking about a brand that's got $1 billion plus market cap that has a whole bunch of different marketing initiatives. So for them, it's not a price issue, it's a quality of content issue. So once we realized that it's not about finding the creator that will bend into our budget, but it's more about finding the creator that creates the best sequencing of content that we can use in the marketing mix, and making sure that we have that benchmarked in a way that makes sense for the brand, that changed the way we think about it. So we've had some thinking that we've shifted as we've grown up here as a company, as a direct result of making some mistakes on campaigns, right? Like we trying to be too shrewd with the creators, or trying to find creators that would fit into a certain budget, and it just didn't fit. So it creates extra work for the team. The value proposition for us that we found was the actual visualization and connection of the value that the AI creates pre-campaign and then post-campaign, and just being able to educate the customer that is scared of content AI and creators and influencer booking in general, to where it becomes a less scary thing, to where it's just like, hey, it's just like we're finding people to create the best possible content. Forget about the word influencers for a second. Forget about what the social performances, all those things are going to mean, because all we want right now is content for these channels, because we're going to measure what that content does on those channels once it's done. And when you start putting things into more of a simple, digestible, actionable plan, people start to understand it more, adoption comes differently. And then when they see the results, if the results are what we think the results should be, then that's when we get into a really nice sweet spot with the customers and clients.
I'm sure you guys have gone through several iterations of this. It's continuing to develop. What's been, do you have like great mentors in this space that you're looking up to when it comes to building this thing out? How are you continuing to stay on like the cutting edge of artificial intelligence as it relates to marketing?
Well, we all of our ML and AI engineers and all those folks are in Toronto, which is a hotbed for really just some fantastic people that are incredibly talented. We also have a grant from the Canadian government for an AI innovation grant. So, we're a small company. We have less than 20 FTEs, and half of the team is on the ML and AI side of the business. So, and unfortunately, there isn't a whole bunch of people that are doing what we're doing. There's companies that have iterations that are, on certain types of marketing, like Persado, for example, is just on the copy side. But we are, I don't know of anybody that's doing what we're doing. So on the mentoring side, the way we think about innovation and product development is more of we have a very deliberate, structured feedback loop internally that includes sales, customer success, and product. So we, on a very frequent basis, have our ML team, our customer success team, and our sales team on the phone collectively doing a screen share and really drilling down on the things that we're building as it relates to the value that we're delivering to a customer. So we have, there's a very deliberate connection between sales and dev, with customer success living in the middle. And we found that is, that's mission critical, because you'll find that sometimes you're developing something that nobody cares about, uses, or it's like you're developing something that's for this hypothetical thing that we might do in 6 months, versus we're developing something that we have already proven that customers want, that deepens adoption at the beginning part of our customer journey. So we've gotten better at that. it's an ongoing thing, but we've gotten better at that and very deliberate about that. So for us, our learnings with respect to how we think about our product is a direct result from the learnings that we take from campaigns and customers that are going from a pilot to a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year agreement.
Gotcha. And how are you guys acquiring customers right now? Like, what's your go-to-market strategy for sales?
Paid advertising, we do some landing pages, paid advertising, a small amount of it. And then we do quite a bit of thought leadership and conferences. So we'll go to like some of the marquee events, and there's some groups that we're plugged in with that strategically put us in front of senior marketing budget holders at enterprise Fortune 1000 brands. And it's a fairly deliberate process that we are invested into in between both of those things. And now we have a small sales team at this point. We have one VP of customer development who's essentially our head of sales, and we're just architecting our sales infrastructure and team as we speak. So we are heavily invested into those two things. And for now, that's where we go. Then everything flows into like a HubSpot. Then we take them through like a lead journey, all the way from like a lead to a prospect to an MQL, SQL scope of work, and then deal.
Gotcha. When you got started with HubSpot, is that something you had used before you started RAD?
We did not. I didn't use HubSpot at my previous ventures, but my co-founder Bradley had HubSpot all dialed in from his previous life at Atomic Reach before we merged. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm basically just getting into it right now, and it's a beast. So I'm trying to figure it out right now. Basically, all the workflows, all of the different things you can do with it.
It is
to create journey.
It's a beast. There's a lot of functionality there, and it's set up for an enterprise sales team. It's probably a little bit overkill even for us for what we need right now. But we've got, our entire website is published on it, and there's really great communication structures for all of your email sequencing, and you can do all sorts of interesting segmentation. But we're not even close to using it at full capacity yet.
There's so many people that say that of like, yeah, HubSpot's awesome, but we're not even fully using it, or we're not even using it to its full capacity. Like that, I feel like that's 90% of HubSpot users, but that's good though. That means they're staying way ahead of people's desires, and rather than, yeah, I tried doing that on HubSpot, but it didn't work. So that's an interesting fact. But just to kind of speak, our audience is a lot more small business entrepreneurs. If you were going to give those guys advice as it relates to building, something in the machine learning, artificial intelligence space, what would you tell somebody that's just getting started or interested in this space?
Well, for starters, the more that you can articulate the problem that you're trying to solve from a function perspective, because machine learning and AI at its core is solving efficiency or speed or impactful issues that we face. As you could be a marketer, but you could be a farmer to understand better times of the year to pull crops based off of weather patterns. It could be anything, right? But you have to have the knowledge base. Like, for example, we had a very large client opportunity that was on the marketing side, and the guy said, oh, we've got somebody else from this other communications part of our company that has an issue that they're trying to solve with AI. Would you talk to them? And then they wanted us to solve this like telco problem, which it's just a problem with inputs, right? And then building models around the inputs. But we weren't experts in that, right? Like, so we're expert marketers, we're expert at creator activations, we're expert in paid advertising. So there's like this thing where if you're an expert in an industry, then you can identify things in that industry that if they were automated, or if you had information given to you in a way that was organized, would help you be better. Then that's the direction, right? So if you think about like our artificial intelligence, like what do we do? Well, for a campaign, we'll average 35,000 machine learning hours, and we'll read somewhere between 400 to 500 million pages of web data. That's through partnerships like Reddit, publisher partnerships, search data, whatever. And that gives us just more information to make decisions, but it's now taking that information and giving it to you in a way that you can use it. So if you just think about it from that context, you can now start to think about, okay, like if I am an expert at a specific thing, what are the things that if I had it faster, smarter, better, or more information at my fingertips, organized in a way that I could use it, that would make me better at my thing. That's the way that you should think about it as an entrepreneur. And expertise around the problem is critical. Like if you're a doctor or a medical provider, expertise around an issue that you're trying to solve, whether it's disease detection or potentially providing a faster way to look at customer records, right? But you have to be an expert at that thing in order to understand what could be built to make that thing better. And then from there, you can build whatever you want to build if you have the wherewithal, resources, and mindset to do it.
That's super. That was great. I love your answer to that. Is you have to be the expert in the thing before you're going to improve it.
Yes.
And I love that. That's spot on. I feel that way about marketing. Like, had I not understood marketing or video production, I wouldn't have ever asked the question of, could I have this better, faster? And I think people get into like different technology and different software, and they start to see that software's limitations. They're like, okay, this clearly needs to be built because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
That's
right.
that's really fascinating. Parting pieces of advice, and I want to know two things. So it's your parting pieces of advice for young entrepreneurs, and then also what book have you read and gifted to people the most?
Well, parting piece of advice is there is if you are deciding to start your own business, the understanding that it's incredibly challenging and hard, and you're going to have ebb and flows, ups and downs, and the thing that separates the girls from the women and the boys from the men is your ability to be resilient and to push through. And there's a combination of resiliency, persistence, and continual vulnerability, and putting your ego aside, that kind of that are like the criteria for what I look at as like a high quality entrepreneur. Is like, you got to be okay with being humble, you got to be okay with ups and downs, and you also got to be okay with very, very deliberate, almost brutal honesty within the people that you're able to enroll into your vision or thing. So the thing I would say is, like, the thing that I always see is amongst the people that are successful is they have almost a very they're going to figure it out. It doesn't matter. And that's just what it is. Like, you have a way of just always figuring things out, and it doesn't matter what the scenario is, you're going to figure it out. So that would be my thing, is just, that mindset of it. It is a continual educational learning process. You have to be very committed to making to improving your skill sets as a human being, not just both from a product perspective, but from an EQ and intelligence perspective of dealing with people. And you got to be almost naively persistent to where you're just going to figure it out. So that would be my my sort of like advice for criteria. What was your other question again?
The last question was, what's the book you've gifted the most, or the book you've read so many times you started to gift it to people?
Well, there's two. There's a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, written by Ben Horowitz, which I really enjoyed, which is a good book that is good for any early stage CEO founder that is going through some challenging issues, everything from hiring executives to firing executives to going through really, really challenging, struggling times where you're having problems raising money, to you're having problems getting product market fit. So that is a really good one that I like, that I've read several times, that I've gifted several times. And then there's another book called Traction, which is by Gene Wickman, which is the EOS system, which I really enjoy. And that's typically for, a company that's starting to get some traction, but wants to put an operational framework or implement an operational framework. It's a very good, clear step-by-step on implementing an operational framework.
Awesome. Have you read Rocket Fuel yet too?
I haven't.
Yeah, so I was actually just listening to a podcast the other day with Pace Morby, who's really big real estate He's got a show on A&E and everything. He's got a cool podcast. And he was talking about how Rocket Fuel was actually a really great book for him to read after Traction as kind of a follow-up. So you might really enjoy that.
Oh, Rocket Fuel. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will take
Well,
a look.
Jeremy,
Yeah. Thank you for the reco.
yeah, you bet, buddy. Thank you for just sharing, kind of unpacking a little bit of how your brain works on this. I think we're going to look back at this point in a couple of years, and your tech is going to be, light years ahead of where it is right now. And I'm just excited to have you on in the future and see how far this thing has come, and see you guys taking over the world. So
I appreciate it, man. Looking forward to doing a look back in 2 years with you and seeing if your crystal ball holds true.
that's right. Yeah, that's right, buddy. Well, take care. And guys, it's going to wrap it up for this episode of Spark to Fire. Make sure you look up Jeremy Barnett and RAD AI. Go ahead and drop what's your handles where you want to push them, or a website you want to push them to, Jeremy?
Well, my email is jeremybarnett@radintel.ai. It's radintel.ai. And our website is radintel.ai.
Awesome. Guys, go there if you want to check out this amazing software and their services that they provide. And for now, that is going to do it for this episode. So keep striking.